Broadcasting Network. You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on.
I am ready. And it's Wrestling Observer Live. We're live 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Sundays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, and Saturdays, where you are right now, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. It is Jim Valley.
Thicker than a Snickers.
The effing king of recovery.
Faster than a cat with whiskers.
Back because of the fans.
Each and every one of you.
The largest gathering of trailer park trash.
You all fat, neck-bearded, mouth-breathing trolls.
They don't have adrenaline in their soul.
And let's face it.
Let's be honest, if not for me, you'd be stuck with one of those she-trolls in the back. Woof.
Coming up on the show today, take a look back at the talent that broke out and sort of either broke up or needs repairs in 2024. Plus, is WWE going to reach a tipping point in 2025? Maybe the signs are starting to show. Smackdown, kind of a placeholder show. Maybe the best thing that happened off the air. And last night, the last Rampage. That's right. Last Rampage, I gave you my heart. The very next day, you took it away. Next year, Marina Shafir, I'll give it to a Battle of the Belt special. Plus, AEW World's End tonight should have some great wrestling, but I think modern booking and some of the choices that have been made, particularly surrounding the Death Riders and the way titles are booked today, has kind of affected and curbed some of the excitement. We'll talk about that and more. Plus, hope you had a very nice holiday. I'm wearing one of my holiday gifts, this lovely Super Mario Brothers mushroom, like a Mr. Rogers sweater. Plus, I've got my Nintendo controller, Christmas tree shirt, t-shirt on underneath. Hopefully Santa Claus was very good to you and gave you everything you asked for. Hopefully you're on the nice list. We'll get down to the naughty, the nice, and everything in between. Stand by. Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live.
You are clear.
There we go. All right. All right. How is everybody doing? Good to see everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. I really do. You know, I've been watching all holiday. I have been obsessed with Christmas market webcams. They show on YouTube. They just cycle through all these European Christmas markets where they have little booths set up and lights, sometimes little rides for the kids. And, oh, it's great. Ice skating rinks, tons and tons of ice skating rinks. It's so cute. Play Christmas music really has put me in the Christmas spirit. Matter of fact, my wife and I want to go to one in Lapland, in Finland, called Santa's Village. It's right near the Arctic Circle. Very excited. Right now, one from Kyrgyzstan is on the YouTube. But if you search Christmas markets on YouTube, you can watch them. But a lot of them are tearing down right now. But it's just cool to see. It's fascinating. Also, one of the things they have at the Christmas markets is Glühwein, sort of a warm, spiced wine that you drink. And those lines are always very long. You can always tell where they're selling the Glühwein because usually that's the longest line and the biggest crowds.
There's a super tiny, no, not super tiny, but it's like, they call it Christmas Tree Lane out here. There's like,
oh, sure.
Do you know Alameda?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a pretty decently long street in Alameda. Basically, like to move into a house on that street, you have to have
Christmas
lights.
Like a Candy Cane Lane. There's a couple of those here, yeah.
And they just set up at the corners, like the beginnings of the street,
right,
and sell hot buttered rum. And and you just walk through the street and it's just incredible. And like twice there's like a local middle school band that comes and like plays music a couple times throughout December, and it's really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, they have a couple of candy cane lanes and stuff like that in various cities. It's kind of fun. I did treat myself. I had a little hot-boarded rum, not much alcohol in it, but I'm only human. Those are so good.
Hot buttered rum is so delicious.
We've got a local mixer. I'm pretty sure it's local. It's called Harvey's. It's really good. Really good. Oh, I've also got my Nintendo mug, but I've had this for a while. So I'm all Nintendo'd out today.
All right, here we go.
All right,
Aaron Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live. Hope you had a very lovely holiday. By the way, here's another thing I got from my wife. See if I can hold that up to the camera. It's Kraft macaroni and cheese gummies. Not those kind of gummies, just regular candy. But it's pretty funny that comes in a box, looks like Kraft macaroni and cheese, but it's candy, kind of funny. By the way, I want to let you know, I'm leaving X Twitter probably by the first of the year. I'm going to hold on to the handle, Jim Valley, for a little while, just so no one squats there and posts a bunch of inappropriate things. But if you want anything from me, actual posts, go to Jim Valley at Blue Sky or Jim_Valley at Instagram. I have Facebook, but I don't really do much wrestling on Facebook. Smackdown last night was a placeholder show, which makes sense. It's the holidays. That's fine. Probably the most notable thing was after the show when Braun Strowman, Sami Zayn, and Jay brought the kids of Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper, Brody Lee, John Huber into the ring. They did some yeeting, and Braun talked about how Bray's kids were his godchildren. It was very, very sweet, particularly for the holiday. On TV, really just kind of, like I said, placeholder stuff, nothing too exciting. Someone in the chat says SmackDown was lacking. I mean, that's to be expected during the holidays, I think. I mean, things will get going once we get into the new year, get into WrestleMania season in earnest. Open the show, Bianca, Naomi, and Bayley beat Nia, Tiffany, and Candice. Once again, it's centered around Nia, Tiffany, and the Money in the Bank briefcase. Tiffy saw a potential opportunity to cash in on Jax when Jax was down, but Candice LeRae stopped her. The argument allowed for Naomi to pin LeRae for the win. Of course, they also talked about who attacked Jade. And I think it's pretty obvious it's going to be Naomi, but we shall see. Also on the show, Braun Strowman pinned Austin Theory. Remember him? Pinned him with a power slam. Remember when they were teasing a breakup between Austin Theory and Grayson Waller? Yeah, I don't either. But then again, that Tony Khan booking. Street Profits beat Angel and Berto. Can't really say what happened to them because no one expected anything. Did a whole big red, white, and green and blue U.S. title celebration. Chelsea stood at the podium, looked like the presidential seal with her picture on it. Again, ring decked out in red, white, and blue, but Chelsea says it's the year of red, white, and green. After putting yourself over with comments like this.
Let's be honest, if not for me, you'd be stuck with one of those she-trolls in the back. Woof.
It was funny. Corey Graves said that Michael Cole sounded like Lee Greenwood. They were talking about all the red, white, and blue iconography. And of course, Lee Greenwood, famous for writing and singing the song God Bless the USA. I popped for that one. Anyway, Mia Yim came out with a kendo stick. She was approaching the ring, but Piper Niven cut her off, took the brunt of the attack, which is her job. Apollo Crews told the Street Profits it was really DIY who attacked them last week. We'll see where that goes. Sami Zayn, Carmelo Hayes battled to a no contest. Melo even got to kick out of the Blue Thunder Bomb, which I thought was surprising. Hayes had enough, starting to walk out when Solo and his bloodline hit and attacked Sammy. And Solo had the black turtleneck and the necklace, definitely shades of the old Rock picture. I don't think that was by mistake. Somebody said Green is top notch in her talent. She's funny, great facial expressions. She can wrestle. Yeah, she's got great poise. I'm happy for her. Big fan. I still think it would have been better if someone credible held the title and then she won it and started desecrating the heritage of the U.S. title. But it's fine. It's no big deal. Also on the show, Kevin Owens in his car with the winged eagle title. It's official. Cody versus Kevin Owens in a ladder match with both belts hanging above the ring. And even though SmackDown sort of ended in sort of a brawl afterwards, after the Mello and Sami Zayn match, like death and taxes, Kevin Owens in the men's single main event match in the Royal Rumble. It's an inevitability. You know, the one thing that's different is that it's not Roman Reigns this time. But look back at this. 2016, Kevin Owens. They didn't have a world title match, but challenged Dean Ambrose for the Intercontinental title unsuccessfully. Kevin Owens challenged Roman in 2017 for the Undisputed title unsuccessfully. 2018, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, 2-on-1, challenging AJ, who's also had 5 main event men's matches in the Royal Rumble. 2021, Kevin Owens versus Roman, Undisputed title. That was a fun match. That was a lot of fun, as a matter of fact. Anyway, 2023, again, Roman, Undisputed title. And this year, 2025, a ladder match versus Cody for the undisputed WWE Championship. And like I've said, Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe, they're like the mirror image of each other. They have tons of credibility. They can talk their way in and out of any situation. And fans buy it each and every time. A lot of times you try to heat up a talent and it doesn't work. But Kevin Owens, Samoa Joe are so good at it that it works every single time. It's going to work this time because that's how good they are. But Kevin Owens, AJ Styles tied at 5 Royal Rumble main event matches. And again, certainly, you know, there's always people who live in this box. And if something doesn't fit in the box, in that cookie cutter, if the square peg doesn't go into the square hole, well then, it must be wrong. And I'm sure there are people who are going to say, oh, Kevin Owens, he shouldn't be challenging. They've done it every time. It's a crutch. It's this, it's that. But I think Kevin Owens is the exception to that rule. Is it redundant? Certainly. You could make that case. But to make that case is also denying Kevin Owens' undeniable talent and his ability to make chicken salad time and time again. So you could say it's a crutch. You could say, oh, Triple H doing this again, but Kevin Owens is great. If you want to get all nitpicky, sure, fine. But I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Guys like AJ, guys like Kevin Owens, you can rely on them anytime you need them to make something work, to get fans excited, and fans buy into it because that's the kind of credibility that they have. Just like with Samoa Joe, even in WWE. Kevin Owens, at least is a former Universal and World Champion, and has main evented, and has had an incredible career in WWE. Samoa Joe never really did, but it worked each and every time. You wanted to heat him up, whether it's TNA, AEW, WWE, Samoa Joe, you can just throw him in the microwave like a casserole, and it works each and every time. So I don't have a problem with it. Well, did you catch the last Rampage last night? We'll talk about that and more. Stand by. It's Jim Valley. It's Wrestling Observer Live. There we go. All right, kids. Who resigned? Did Kevin Owens resign? Is that what you're talking about? Or AJ? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, those guys are geniuses. Kevin Owens, AJ, Samoa Joe, they're wrestling geniuses. Oh, yeah, of course Kevin Owens is going to resign. Why wouldn't he? He's in a great position. And you know, undeniable, Kevin Owens has so much talent. But back in the Ring of Honor days, I was like, with Vince in charge, it's like, he wears a shirt, doesn't have a lot of muscle tone. But I mean, that's his body type, not a criticism. He just didn't seem like a Vince guy, but got to give him credit, man. He's done great. He's done awesome. Nothing but respect for Kevin Owens. Yeah. You like that? That's good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the last NXT Level Up, too. Yeah. Because it's going to be legends and upcomers, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So, I don't know. How we doing? Is something going on? Anything going on? I don't know. All right. Hope you guys got all kinds of good presents. Yeah. Had a lovely holiday. A lovely holiday. All right. Well, technically, you're getting less AEW. Are you gonna watch a 86 Comp Geek? Are you gonna watch all 3 hours of SmackDown and Raw every week? And do you watch NXT too? Just curious. Just curious. To me, that's a lot. That's a lot. And the repeats. Okay, now you're just screwing around. Now you're just screwing around. No, seriously, are you going to watch them or not? Oh, now you're just goofing. Now you're just goofing around. Now you're just clowning. Anyway. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I don't like the 3 hours. I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that. We'll talk about that. Boy, the markets are very pretty today. It's a good question. All right. Happy New Year to you, Maz 3D. Happy New Year to you. It's Wrestling Observer Live. It's Jim Valley. Hey, be sure to follow me on Blue Sky, Jim Valley, bluesky.social, and bsky.social, because that's where I'm going to be starting in 2025. So just so you know. Rampage. It's the last Rampage last night. Taped at the Hammerstein Ballroom earlier in the week. Chris Jericho beat Anthony Bowens. Bowens was going to cheat. They were fighting over a briefcase, and there was a tug of war, and his caster snatched the foreign object away. The backlash struck Bowens, knocked him out. Keith tackled caster out of the ring, and Jericho made the cover, and it happened so slowly and deliberately. I'm sure that Bowens is going to be able to blame caster. Caster will have that deniability as the obvious heel turn continues. Did a video, Private Party, about them coming home to NYC. Private Party pinned Leo Sparrow and Alec Price after the gin and juice. Now, following the pin, Andretti, Leo Rush, and their spiky coats came out. So did Top Flight. All three teams had a great big brawl to end the segment. Tape promo from Powerhouse Hobbs, hyping up his match, challenging Takeshita for the international title tonight at World's End. Thunder Rosa beat Layla Gray with the Cobra Clutch. Hook choked out Nick Wayne in the main event with the Red Rum. Now, backstage, the Death Riders were shown beating up Darby Allin. Now, this fight finally made its way to the ring. Moxley grabbed a chair, sat in the ring, daring anyone to come to the ring and do something about them. Now, the first person who came out was Commander. Of course, he got laid out, but that's his job. And they obviously have got a thing right now with Commander. Then out came Orange Cassidy and Jay White, Hangman, Willow Nightingale, among many others. It was good to see Willow Nightingale come out and finally give Marina Shafir something to do. As this whole thing ensued, Moxley and Marina went into the production truck. Also, Pac took a club and smashed what they said was the lighting rig in Hammerstein, although it looked more like a audio mixing board than a lighting rig to me. But what do I know? Anyway, Moxley and Shafir, the production truck, and Moxley said is king. He's going to bring peace to the people. And he cut the feed on Rampage to close and end the broadcast and end Rampage seemingly forever, or at least for now. In some ways, it's kind of too bad that Rampage is over. And this episode and the past few weeks, maybe the last month or so of Rampages. Rampages. That's the plural, right? Anyway, this episode illustrates how, Rampage could have been helpful to have a go-home show for a Saturday pay-per-view like World's End. But, Rampage never got traction recently for a number of reasons. People only watch front programming. And Rampage had always had fine wrestling, just not a lot of things that advance stories, not a lot of huge stars. But like I've said a million times, if you just want to come home, chill out after a busy week, and just watch some wrestling, it's a nice little show. It's not going to set the world on fire. And it didn't. I got to laugh. There's all these people who always say, oh, everything moves too fast. It's like, well, do you watch Rampage? That moves slowly. Oh, no, don't watch Rampage because nothing happens. God, I love people. Anyway, Rampage never got traction. And, I watched Rampage because of this show, and it sort of always reminded me of the short-lived WCW Power Hour in the 90s. Often self-contained, good wrestling, big stars, but not too big of stars. Just like the old WCW TV days. Look, there's just too much content today. People miss an episode, they realize it's no big deal. They can still follow the product. Before you know it, they realize that they can miss more and more shows. And it snowballs from there. And that really, I think, is going to be a story to follow in 2025. Look at WWE. They got rid of Level Up, whatever that was. That was kind of the pre-NXT show. But this week it was announced officially. But it was already expected. I've talked about it. Raw on Netflix, Smackdown on USA, each going to 3 hours every week. Plus, you got 2 hours of NXT. On PLE weekends, you could see an additional 3 to 4 hours tacked on to that. So we're talking 12 hours, maybe even a little bit more, like on WrestleMania weeks, particularly if they're going to 2 pay-per-views, splitting them in half. So we're talking 6 hours additionally. Ridiculous. So we're talking 12, maybe even 14, 16 hours of first run WWE content each week. You know, and think about this. It's not like Saturday night's main event numbers set the world on fire. I was personally surprised that it didn't do better. And look, I'm not saying the sky's falling, but there are some signs that business is softening. This past Thursday, December 26th, the annual WWE house show at Madison Square Garden, the biggest house show of every year, didn't sell out. Now look, 12,700 people. It's a very good number, not a sellout. It's also down from last year by about 3,000 tickets. However, it's also up from 2022, which sold about 900 fewer tickets. So, like I said, not the end of the world. Could be a sign, something to keep an eye on. But keep in mind that for years, Vince and WWE has always said, where New York City goes, so does the rest of the country. And often New York City is the harbinger of things to come. I don't think the sky is falling, but something to keep an eye on. Maybe business is getting softer. And if it is, the 2 main shows going to 3 hours is not going to help. And I can hear now all the Fed-pilled people. What about AEW? Well, we already know about that. We've talked about that a ton in 2024. It gets discussed ad nauseum each and every week, you know, and that's not hard to find if you need your fix on that. But it will be interesting to see if WWE's business will seemingly get softer, and if that will have any effect on AEW's business. I mean, and we've seen signs independent of WWE. You know, AEW has had some pretty good numbers. Tonight's World End pay-per-view is got a slightly bigger house than last year's pay-per-view. Ratings, Collision last week was a very strong number relative to Collision. And they have had some very good shows, some very strong shows as far as wrestling and creative. And if we're going to see, for example, Kenny Omega maybe perhaps return tonight or sometime in the very near future, what effect could that have on business and the way things are going for AEW? I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, we'll see if as WWE goes, as the business goes, or not. We shall see. But it's interesting how both seem to be relatively independent of each other. Where in the past, WCW was often, well, pre-NWO, was often affected by where WWE went. The rising and lowering tide seemed to affect all boats. We shall see. Well, there is a pay-per-view tonight. AEW's World's End promises to have a ton of great wrestling. However, is there going to be a lot of things that happen tonight? It's hard to say. And like I said, with today's booking, does that affect the excitement? We'll talk about that. Plus, look ahead. The people who have won, lost, and could have a great 2025. Talk about that and more. Stand by. Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live.
You are clear.
Oh, yeah. Hawk was a mess basically his whole career. Hey, Crash TV 83, remind me at the end of the radio broadcast, and I'll talk about that. Going into bonus time. So remind me, okay? That's your job. Remind me in 25 minutes, okay? You got to do that. So there we go. Booker of the Year, I mean, you got to go with Triple H, right? Don't you? I would think you do. I mean, it's hard to say. My pleasure. We're going to talk about old Beast Mortos. It's not Beast Mortos, but it's the only figure he has. I think it's so cool looking. It's so detailed. Anyway, I love you guys. Hey, look, I really appreciate you guys. I honestly do. Sometimes I worry about my voice, that it's a turnoff, and it bothers me. And I know that it is a turnoff for a number of people, but because of that, I appreciate you guys being here. I really do. Honestly. I'm not just saying that. Anyway. Anybody know what that is? Anybody? No, you know what else I got? Let's see. Hang on. Show you some Christmas presents here. I got this little Atari thing. It's kind of fun. It plays a lot of old Atari games. And it's an Evercade. So it plays cartridges. You can put cartridges. It's not a lemming. It's not a lemming. It's a good guess. Here, I'll give you here's a hint. Anybody? Oops. Anybody? Anyway. Hey, Daniel, thanks for everything all year. I couldn't do without you.
No worries. Yeah, thank you.
It doesn't have Pitfall, Dragon John. It's that's an Activision game, so it doesn't have Pitfall. Pitfall is awesome. Anyway. Did you have a nice holiday, Daniel? Did you do anything? Get anything good? Did you get anything?
No, nothing crazy. Just a couple dinners, and one with my mom and then one with my friend and his family. So
that's good.
Oh, here we go.
All right.
You are listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
It's Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live. Oh, goodness gracious. World's End tonight. It's very conflicting. John Moxley, I think, is doing great promos. I think he is doing amazing work in some ways. However, this Death Riders thing, they didn't really build it up very well. It just sort of happened. And I feel like that's kind of affected the interest and affected kind of the stakes of this whole thing. But that said, I mean, everybody's doing great work. Pac, Marina Shafir, Claudio, Wheeler Yuta, they're all doing great work. It's just, we've talked about this. But the other thing is, today's booking, in many, it's good that it goes slower now to give things building, to give things credibility, to give it oomph. But the downside is that it takes a while before you think a champion could lose their title. And it still feels too early in Mox's reign and the Death Riders for this to happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but still feels early. And it doesn't feel like they've built it up to the moment where you think, this is it. This just feels like with a 4-person match, there's too much that can go on with Paige and Jay White and Orange Cassidy not getting their stuff together and eventually losing. Jon Moxley eking out the pinfall and holding on to the world title. So that's, I think, one of the disadvantages of this match. Also on the show, Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay, semifinals of the Continental Classic. One would think maybe Will Ospreay could win. Either one, you could go either way. Then the other semifinal, Okada versus Ricochet in the Continental Classic. You would think Okada should go to the finals to defend his Continental Championship. Okada's kind of spinning his wheels. He needs something. He needs to be more in the world title picture, but he doesn't really fit in the whole Death Riders thing. And that's, again, kind of a limit to this Death Riders storyline is, who can challenge, who should challenge, and who it's going to affect. Also, so finally, it's going to come down to either the winner of Ricochet Okada and the winner of Ospreay Fletcher. And the winner is the new AEW Continental Champion and the tournament winner. Also on the show, Mariah May versus Thunder Rosa, a Tijuana street fight for the AEW Women's World Championship. This feels like, with the street fight, there's an opportunity there for Toni Storm, somebody to get involved, maybe backstage, something happens, or somehow like that, because you can brawl all over the place using weapons. Maybe Toni takes a cane shot or something that hits her in the head, and suddenly she remembers who she is. She's timeless, Toni Storm. Just a thought. Mercedes Moné versus Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. A lot of people think maybe Statlander could win. Not sure about that. Takeshita versus Powerhouse Hobbs. I don't expect Hobbs to win, but he's been doing great. Every time he comes back, it seems he gets that much better and just a little bit closer to the star I think everyone thinks Powerhouse Hobbs can be. Plus MJF versus Adam Cole for the Dynamite Diamond Ring. I would think Adam Cole should win. We'll talk about these guys coming up. I was watching Smackdown this week. And, I was noticing, because it's kind of a placeholder show, that a lot of the stars weren't there. And they had a bunch of can't miss acts who either didn't hit or just haven't yet. Austin Theory, Grayson Waller, Pretty Deadly, even Carmelo Hayes. I mean, his story is still being written, but I think his size works against him. But I don't think him winning the US or IC title is out of the question. They also had a video for Andrade. It seems like no matter where he goes, he always ends up in the same spot. And look, I've mentioned this before. I grew up around a lot of Mexicans. My stepdad was from Mexico, so we had a ton. I was exposed to a ton of Mexican culture, which was great. And so it's like I understand a lot of times what even Andrade or even Roosh are trying to communicate culturally with what they do, but there seems to be just a gap where I don't know that an Anglo audience follows and understands everything they're trying to do, and it just seems like they're this close, but there's just a disconnect with what they're doing. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's like, okay, everyone's wearing the white suit, everyone's angry. It's like that act, those things just are not connecting. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they should be Mexicals or anything like that, but there's just something. There's just something. But there are other people kind of spinning their wheels. Someone suggests maybe get Andrade a manager. Possibly. Quite possibly. Even maybe a woman where he could pull some of that Spanish, stereotypical machismo stuff on her. Maybe that might help. Who knows? There are a lot of talent spinning their wheels. Bailey, AJ, they've had great careers, but they're sort of in supporting roles and are kind of plugged in and used where they're needed. In AJ's case, probably main event next year's Royal Rumble. At least that's what usually happens. LA Knight, super popular and certainly protected as U.S. champion, but one has to wonder if he's hit his ceiling. Same with Jey Uso, incredibly popular. Could he get a run with maybe the world title? Not out of the question, but you got to wonder about his ceiling. Of course, the difference is Jey is so beloved by the WWE fan base. He's like family because he's been around so long. He's like a cool uncle. I'm not sure some fans could imagine him not being a part of WWE. Damian Priest seems to have cooled off. Remember Lexus King? Yeah, me too. People expect big things out of Tiffany Stratton. And certainly I think that can happen, but I'm still curious how she's going to do as a baby face, because she seems like such a natural heel. Someone comparing Eddie Guerrero to Andrade. I don't know if Andrade has shown enough comedic touches. I think Eddie Guerrero is more of a better sports entertainer, if you understand what I'm saying. Jacob Fatu has been as impressive as expected. One would think that there's an inevitable breakup after WrestleMania or SummerSlam, which will give Jacob and Solo something to do in 2025, maybe even in 26. And 2026 seems to be the time to crap or get off the pot from Mysterio, Rhea Ripley, and the Liv will they, won't they storyline. The holidays are over. It's WrestleMania. Let's get it in gear. Roman and Punk seem to be positioned for a feud. That's got money written all over it. But I just don't want Drew involved. Enough of that. Let them do their own thing. Whatever happened to Jade, what seems to be the inevitable feud with Naomi, I hope will give Bianca a little spark. And ditto her husband. That guy, how many times have we predicted big things and it just never quite happened? A lot of people see big things for Sol Ruca, and I think she's got something, but she needs to figure out a couple of things. She can do the big spots, but she needs to work on transitions and the notes in between the music. so to speak. Roxanne Perez has been great. I expect her to be protected in WWE. The only thing is, though, she's small. And size can work against people, as we've seen on the main roster, no matter how talented. That big ring and that main roster presentation has a way of swallowing up people who are not giants. And probably the two biggest can't misses, Julia and Stephanie Vaquer. It's expected Jordan Grace is coming in and, she's got that bodybuilder look that Triple H loves. Joe Hendry coming in. I mean, right now he's sort of kind of cooled down right now, but he can get heated up under the WWE spotlight. At least one would expect. And the one thing creative in WWE has done really well is finding spots and roles for a lot of stars on the roster. Candice LeRae and others. The only thing is that there are only so many slots for that setup person. Now, the big question for AEW is who's going to beat Jon Moxley and be set up as seemingly AEW's top babyface. What role will Kenny Omega play versus the role fans want him to play? What about the inevitable heel run that's coming with the Acclaimed? We shall see. And Jay White. Oh, Jay White. Oh, Jay White is so good. But I'll tell you what, I think last year at Full Gear, when he lost to MJF pretty much cleanly, Jay White lost so much momentum, followed by the injury. And then this year, he had a babyface turn, which, was that a babyface turn? I don't understand what, was he a babyface? Was he not a babyface? I don't even know. I have no idea. And it seems like the fans didn't really know. And he just feels like he's so underutilized. Or maybe he's not. Maybe I just see him as a big star because of his IWGP run, and maybe he's not. Anyway, stand by. It's Jim Valley. It's a Wrestling Observer Live.
You're clear.
Thanks.
Do you have Medicare and do you use a CPAP machine? This is a national healthcare alert regarding your CPAP supplies. Using a clean CPAP mask and clean supplies is important to staying healthy. The best way to make sure your CPAP equipment is clean is to get new supplies. If you have Medicare, we have great news. Medicare will pay for you to have new clean supplies every 90 days.
I don't agree with that.
We'll even do all the
MJF, Jay White is, in my opinion, more talented than MJF, in my opinion. But I mean, MJF is very talented.
CPAP user, and you have Medicare. Staying healthy with new CPAP equipment is easy.
I
Just
like
get
him a
this
lot.
free phone call right now to get started. Sponsored by
Q-Tips, I don't think that's true, Shufflebox, but QT Marshall has looked great. And you know what? For him to try, go to WWE, leave AEW, and for Tony just to bring him back, I think that says what a quality person he is and how respected he is.
And guess who
So,
pays the bill? That's
we
right.
shall see.
You, the American.
But he's been great with his gear, his matches. He's been great.
That's a fact.
He's absolutely been great.
Oh, back taxes. They
Big
will
fan.
be coming after you to collect payments. In fact, President Biden also hired thousands more IRS agents to go after you. If you got a letter from the IRS and you know you owe back taxes or you haven't filed in years, don't put your head in the sand. Call us today. We've saved our customers millions of tax dollars. One quick, free phone call will show you how we can reduce your past tax bill and save you thousands. Guaranteed, or you pay nothing. Call now.
800-949-0039. 800-949-0039. That's 800-949-0039. Paid for by the Tax Helpline. Do you need to sell your home? If you've sold a home before, you remember how stressful and expensive it was. Sold.com is here to help you sell your home for the most money and with the least amount of stress.
It's pretty.
There are new ways to sell your home that you've never heard of before. Did you know there are companies who offer you cash for your home? Did you know you could trade in your home for a new one? Did you know there are realtors who'll sell your home for a flat fee instead of an expensive commission? It's true. Sold.com services are free. So if you're looking to sell, make this free phone call right now and learn how your next home sale can be faster and easier than you ever thought possible. Pick up your cell phone and call right now. 800-251-7816. 800-251-7816. 800-251-7816. That's 800-251-7816.
You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.
It's Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live. Real quick, I want to mention, MJF was off to a great few years, but when you're saying outrageous things, you're going to reach the floor where you can't go any lower because you're going to be really offensive. I'd like to see MJF rely more on creativity than just simple shock value. Swerve is over. Brody King could be a top guy, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards. Mark Briscoe gets great reactions, but doesn't win as much as he should. And Beast Mortos. Do something with Beast Mortos. That guy is awesome. The crowd loves him. Kyle Fletcher's got a great year ahead. Probably Max Caster as well. And someone in the chat mentions Omos in Pro Wrestling Noah, the mystery partner for Jack Morris. And one of the great trends of this year is people going away and being used in other companies to gain perspective and experience, get more polished. We saw it with Anna Jay. We're going to see more of that. And I think that is a fantastic trend that I hope continues. And I think it's a good sign what they want to do with Omos if they're sending him out and about to get more experience. And I think it's a great trend. 24 rather, has been a great year. We've seen so much great wrestling, so much exciting changes. Saturday night's main event, WWE doing gangbuster business, even AEW seemingly making a little bit of a comeback relative to AEW's business. We've seen more interest thanks to the Continental Classic. TNA has had a great year. New Japan, with their Young Lions, is seemingly doing better. All Japan has been somewhat in the mix. Noah, with its relationship with WWE. CMLL on fire on Fridays at Arena Mexico. There's a lot to love, a lot to look forward to in 2025. Hope you have a very safe and happy new year, and I will talk to you in 2025 as well. I've loved doing this. Thank you for being here for me. I always appreciate it, and we've had a lot of fun, and we'll have more fun and interviews and insight maybe coming up next year. Happy New Year from me. It's Jim Valley, Wrestling Observer Live. All right, man. Thanks for everything. You bet. Happy New Year. All right, hang on 1 second. You know what? I'm not going to bother. All right, kids. Hey, what's that dude's name? Okay, you want to talk about the Road Warriors. Right. Okay, hang on. Let me find that one. So you watched Dark Side of the Ring, the Road Warriors, right? That's right. And you were surprised you didn't know Hawk was a big mess. Well, Hawk was pretty much a mess for most of the Road Warriors' career. Animal, Joe, talks about it in his book. By the way, the Road Warriors kept kayfabe for so long that I expected Animal's book to be terrible. And it was surprisingly thoughtful and incisive. You know, growing up in the 80s, the Road Warriors were my favorite. Absolutely my favorite. We got cable in my small town right around the time just before the Road Warriors hit. So I saw virtually all of the Road Warriors' career. And those guys would come in, just beat the crap out of talent. And then, you know, would look dominant. They were huge. They were muscular. You know, they looked cool for the time. You know, the makeup and the hair, and the chains, and the spikes. They gave pretty good interviews. You know, they didn't care. You know, they weren't high flyers, but they would do like those flying shoulder blocks. And they would show seemingly some athleticism for the time. And I remember 1985, Don Owen had his 60th anniversary show just a couple of months after WrestleMania. So on the show, Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Rick Martel is AWA champion, Ric Flair defending the NWA title versus Billy Jack Haynes, and facing off against the Hennigs, Kurt and Larry the Axe Hennig were the Road Warriors. And I mean, look, to have WWE, Roddy Piper on the show, and he came out, and he's the biggest heel in wrestling, literally weeks after WrestleMania 1. Came out, huge cheers, huge babyface in Portland. You know, we're talking after he badmouths and beats up Cyndi Lauper, badmouths, you know, all the women, all this sexist stuff, and here he is, huge babyface in Portland. But the biggest pop of the night, the reason I was there, and I think a lot of fans, were to see the Road Warriors. And still, I mean, I think it wasn't until 1998 and the Attitude Era where I heard a pop, a bigger pop, that matched that. And funny enough, that pop was for Stone Cold Steve Austin in Spokane, Washington. And he wasn't even there. That's how over he was. Anyway, the Road Warriors, you know, Hawk was a mess. He was, you know, he partied a lot, you know, partied way too much. And oftentimes was too, what did they say? Unable to perform, in no condition to perform. And Joe, oh, you're very kind. Oh, thanks, Shufflebox. That's very nice. Thank you. Happy New Year. So Joe would often paint Hawk's makeup for him. And you didn't like it? Here's my sweater, by the way. There it is. It's in the sweater. I think it's a woman's sweater because it buttons the wrong way, but I don't care. Yeah, it's kind of fun. And then here's the Nintendo shirt. It's a Christmas shirt. Hang on real quick. These things are hard to unbutton. Sheesh. There we go. So it's controllers on the t-shirt. So there we go. I think a white shirt would go better, but I wanted to wear the controllers to match. Anyway, so Animal really kept the team together. Let me tell you a story. In Portland, Oregon, when I lived there from like 98, 99 to 2002, to make ends meet, I worked at a small radio station along with a major radio station. And I worked at the small radio station to get on the air and to do some things. and they had a wrestling talk show that I took over, and it was in this crappy house on the east side of Portland, and the signal only made it like halfway across town, literally. Anyway, because of the history of the station, Roddy Piper would come in from time to time. I've talked about this. Anyway, and this was the era of pro wrestling books. So I would call up publishers and get wrestlers on my show. I had a ton of wrestlers. I was like the Chris Van Vliet of the early 2000s. I had everybody on. You name it, I had them. Anyway, I had the Road Warriors phone number. So I called Hawk. Hawk could not have been nicer. Said he'd be on the show. Showtime comes. I call. No answer. Call again. No answer. And I'm like, crap, what am I going to do? I had a whole show planned, and my guest isn't here. So I call Joe, Road Warrior Animal, who, by the way, was my favorite wrestler as a kid growing up because I thought he looked so cool. Anyway, I called Joe thinking, they probably live in the same town. Well, they didn't. Joe lived in Minnesota. Hawk lived in Florida, in Tampa. Anyway, so I called Joe. Hey, Joe, or hey, Joe Animal. Hey, I can't find Hawk. Would you happen to know where he is? No. Didn't know. And Hawk, an Animal, didn't have to do this, was nice enough to do the show with like a minute's notice. And we were on the air for like 20 minutes. What a nice guy. I was always grateful. And Hawk felt bad. He sent me a bunch of autographed pictures to apologize. And he did the show the next week. But that was just kind of indicative of the Road Warriors relationship. Hawk was probably the better promo. Hawk was more charismatic, maybe even the better worker of the team. But had it not been for Joe and the grounding factor of that team, keeping things together, keeping the train on the tracks, the Road Warriors would not have been the Road Warriors. So yeah, no, Hawk was a mess. You could even see it on, Jimmy Garvin had a video recorder and taped some things backstage at the 86, I think, Great American Bash. And so you see them having a little fun. I don't think they're doing it directly on camera, but you can see them, I guess, from what I've been told, after you do a couple of lines of Coke, you take water, like from the sink, and you drip it like this into your nose to get any stuff that's built up into your system. Anyway, you can see them doing that on the video. But it's just a matter of, how much, they partied and how much they did. But he kept it all together. Hang on, where's the other question? Hang on, someone wants to know. There's another question about. Give me a second. I'm looking. There's something about Road Warriors in Japan. Where was it? Hang on, I'm looking. Someone mentions, the only tag team, AWA, NWA, WWF tag team titles. Oh yeah, they held the international tag team titles. They were a huge deal when they first came to Japan. Fumi Saito was there, my buddy Fumi. And he talks about it was like the Beatles arriving because they already had a reputation. that preceded them, because there was a TV show, it was called World Wrestling, that showed clips of U.S. wrestling. So they had already been stars thanks to the television. And by the time they showed up, it was a huge deal. You know, there was tons of people at the airport to see the Road Warriors debut in Japan. Now they had like huge guarantees in Japan, and they did really well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were with Baba, then switched, and then I think regretted it. But no, they were big stars in Japan. You know, they did that Super World Sports show where they wrestled Hogan and Tenryu. So no, the Road Warriors were, obviously, like today, to have that WWE machine behind you, can make you a humongous star. So Hulk Hogan was obviously the biggest star, but arguably outside of WWE and the WWE machine, the Road Warriors were arguably the biggest star. I mean, you put them on a card and they would sell out 10, 12, 15,000 fans just to see the Road Warriors. And considering they didn't have the machine behind them like WWE, it's very impressive. But I mean, from like 1984 to about 1990, 91. I mean, they won the WWE title, but they were kind of coming to the end of being the Road Warriors, if you know what I mean. But I mean, everything has a shelf life. But I mean, the Road Warriors and Hulk Hogan brought in that body guy, muscular, Land of the Giants look that was the trend in wrestling for nearly a decade. And because of the Road Warriors, every territory had those Road Warrior ripoffs, whether it was a Barbarian or a Max Payne or a Jack Hammer or, the Equalizer or whomever. Everybody, every territory had somebody who was big and tried to mimic the Road Warriors, whether they were Master Blasters or Mod Squad, whomever. But I mean, they were one of, if not the most imitated wrestlers of the 1980s. And if it wasn't for Animal, that whole thing would have ended much, much sooner. But I highly recommend reading Animal's book. It's a very good book. It's not that long, but it's very insightful, very candid, and much more than I expected. Oh, you're talking about the Hellraisers. Yeah, I should get roided up. Yes, I should. Absolutely. That wouldn't kill me at all. Some Dragon John said, I think it was Hawk and Kensuke Sasaki, who were the Hellraisers in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Interestingly enough, both names for the team, the themes for the team were Ozzy Osbourne songs. They came out to Iron Maiden, or not Iron Maiden, Iron Man. And there's the Hellraiser song that Ozzy sings. And that's where it came from. But, there were a lot of issues with Hawk and Animal, in the early 90s. Hawk was not happy, or Animal wasn't happy about Hawk tagging with Sasaki and doing a very similar gimmick. Hawk, went off and left Animal. If you watch that SummerSlam match that opened up SummerSlam 92, Hawk is a mess. A mess. I mean, they can't do the Doomsday Device because Hawk would have clearly fallen off the ropes. They can't do anything because Hawk is just in really, really bad shape. So if you go back and watch that show, that opening match, it's bad. And I guess even Hawk was so messed up that he burned his boot and part of his calf because he had his calf on the exhaust pipe of the motorcycle as they were ridden out that entrance at SummerSlam 92. But Hawk went on a big drug binge, hung out with Hell's Angels in London, and wasn't seen for months. And Animal kept his dates. He lived up to the contract. He tagged with Crush, and I think he was in a position where he had to do something to not renege on the contract, get sued, or cost them money. But Animal was definitely a businessman, and that was kind of the story of the Road Warriors. But they went back to WCW in '96. They looked good still, but that era was over. Sunsets on everybody's era, and that's kind of just the way it is. Hawk did have a lot of near-death experiences. There were a few times he was in emergency rooms and had some problems. But I mean, you can see when they came back in '97, their bodies didn't look the same, and they weren't, they didn't stand out anymore because the era they had ushered in, everybody else copied it. So they weren't giants anymore. They were just other people in the crowd. Plus, when you reach your 40s, late 30s, you can't do all that stuff. And that's kind of just what happens. And, and Hawk was a mess. They did that stupid storyline about him being a mess. And it's sad. But I mean, it happens to everybody. I can't say that it's, maybe you can say because they pointed out his drug issues that it was different, but, time is undefeated, and it was inevitable. Paul Ellering, still relevant, the last one left from the LOD. It's fascinating. Paul Ellering got injured in Portland, Oregon, and that's what led him to being a manager. And it was, as I was a kid, like I said, we got WTBS right around that time, and each and every Saturday they talked about it being the Ole and Soley show. Gordon Soley and Ole Anderson was the booker, explaining everything and cutting promos for people and explaining all the storylines. But the other thing was Paul Ellering was kind of the third person who talked a lot and set up a lot of storylines and fought with Ole Anderson, and they jawed back and forth and all of those things. And Paul Ellering was, one of those muscle guys who tried to copy superstar Billy Graham, Jesse Ventura in that vein. And he probably wasn't tall enough or quite big enough for that to work. So he probably had a better career than would be expected. And I didn't know this at the time, but if you listen to interviews with the LOD and with Paul Ellering, he was a shoot manager. He did handle their stuff, and he got their money. He got a third of what LOD brought in. So if they made $250,000 each, he made $250,000 each. And they would not have advanced like they did had it not been for Paul Ellering, because Paul is telling him, do this, don't do that, now do this. And they followed everything he said. So they really were advanced past their level of ability because they listened to Paul and did things that veterans would do that rookies wouldn't know about. So again, I think that Paul really helped them. everybody ripped off everybody. Talking about Hogan ripping off Superstar Billy Graham. Superstar Billy Graham, it's funny. It's the whole circle. Muhammad Ali watched wrestling and mimicked wrestling promos. And then wrestlers saw Muhammad Ali and they ripped off Muhammad Ali promos. Dusty and Superstar Billy Graham and all those people. So it's kind of funny the way it works. It's a whole circle of life and a circle of wrestling. But no, Paul Ellering, great career. And he's really responsible for a huge success that the Road Warriors had. And it all comes full circle. When the Road Warriors were hot, they would manhandle Bruiser and Crusher, who were getting old on their way out. And then when they got older, the LOD, DX and other people didn't give them the respect. That's very much the case. Yeah, Thunderbolt Patterson, another person whose promos were copied. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, that's just kind of the way it works in wrestling and in other things. Certainly one could argue. Is it cultural appropriation? Quite possibly, but that's a show for a different time. But I loved the Road Warriors growing up. They were absolutely my favorite. So when I say that the Young Bucks, I believe, the greatest team of all time, that's not something I take lightly. Because I was a huge Road Warrior mark. Huge Road Warrior mark. But I can't deny that the Young Bucks did a lot of things that were more significant in the history of wrestling than even my favorite tag team, the Road Warriors. No, I love those guys. Those guys were the absolute best. It was my honor to be able to interview them and talk to them. I've interviewed Animal a couple of times in person too. I was very lucky to be able to take a picture with him, and he was, like I said, he was my favorite wrestler growing up. A lot of tag teams too use the Doomsday device. I mean, think about Demolition. They were their own people as far as wrestling goes. You could argue they're a better working tag team, maybe had better matches than the Road Warriors, but there's no question that Vince wanted his own Road Warriors. There's no question about that. The most significant thing to happen in the history of wrestling that's overlooked. Oh wow. That's overlooked. Oh boy. Let me think about that one. That's such a big question. It's like I have things come to mind, but then I go, no, that's not overlooked. Let me ruminate on that and remind me, and I'll maybe next week I'll see if I can come back to that. Ah, yes, the infamous strip club story where they were in some club and Vince McMahon, the LOD, gave him a shoot devastation device in the club. Yes, that is funny. Oh, come on. There's no question Vince McMahon is the greatest promoter in wrestling history. Maybe second is Baba and Inoki. Then maybe, Vince Senior, Crockett, Jim, I don't know, something like that. It's hard to say. Probably something like that. But yeah. Hang on 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm a big Road Warrior mark, but wrestling figures are so expensive. And they're more than I want to pay. So I bought these, the original ones, the Remco ones, because they're $5. This was like $10. So I was like, this I can buy, but I'm not paying, more than $50 or whatever. Then I bought these AWA titles to put on there, because that's peak Road Warriors in my mind. I always thought the Remco figures were better than the big plastic figures because you could bend them and actually, do stuff with them. But anyway, there you go. Oh, goodness. Top 3. Oh, did you have them? Did you have those Remco figures as a kid? Yeah, I just have these two. But I liked them. But I love the Road Warrior figures, but I don't want to spend, a cajillion dollars. Same thing with, I loved Kerry Von Erich growing up. I wanted a Von Erich figure, and this one was like 30, which seems like a lot, but when you consider how expensive all the other Von Erich figures are, it's like, that's perfect. I just don't want, I'm not going to spend what they actually cost these days. And that's fine. That's the market, but I don't want to spend that money. So, yeah, I just have a few figures. I don't have very many. Just a couple. This one is awesome. These two. These are from Kevin Kleinrock and his company. They do the Lucha figures. These things are so freaking detailed. Whoops, there he is. There he is. These things are so detailed. It's ridiculous. I mean, these things should cost a lot more than they do. And even though it's not a Beast Mortos doesn't look like this, it's still great. So anyway, yeah, these figures are amazing. So top 3 WWE matches. Oh gosh. Obviously you got to go with, Brett and Austin. I think you have to go with, Hogan and Andre. Possibly Savage and Steamboat, because it sort of helped usher in wrestling in WWE. What else? Oh gosh, I don't know. WrestleMania 1 is a big deal. What else is a big deal? Of like major historic. The Triple H Rock ladder match at SummerSlam, which sort of kind of made both guys. That's kind of a big deal. Things like that. Those things come to mind. There's got to be, what's a big modern WrestleMania match? I don't. We'll see what happens. Cody, it's too soon to say the historical significance of Cody and Roman Reigns, but maybe that one could have something. We shall see. HBK versus Hall. Which Hall? Scott Hall? Which one are you talking about? I'm not sure. Oh, the ladder match. WrestleMania 10. Duh. Sorry. It was, never mind. I'm an idiot. Yeah. Yeah. That's certainly, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even the tag team ladder match with all the tag teams at WrestleMania. That's a big deal to a generation of fans. That's a very big deal. Austin beating HBK. There's a lot of it is generational too. There's so much generational stuff. It's hard to say, but there we go. Anybody watching World's End tonight? Anybody gonna check it out? Oh wow. Okay. All right, never mind. All right, kids. All right. Yeah. Oh, let's see. The Continental Classic. Kyle Fletcher doesn't need to win. He certainly could. I think here's what I think. Ospreay hinted that after the Continental Classic, he's going to help out against the Death Riders. So maybe that's a sign he's not winning the Continental Classic. So what, Fletcher and Okada maybe with a rematch? And Okada wins? It really could be any of these guys. I don't know. Kyle Fletcher certainly can win, and that would be good for him. But, I don't know that necessarily he needs to win, but we shall see. Ricochet, I think he needs to win. He's a heel now. He can lose, but yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Yeah. All right, kids. Anything else real quick? Anything else? I think it's gonna be a lot of good wrestling. But I don't know. I think for it to really be like a success, I think Omega needs to come back. Omega needs to come back, and they need to hint that he's coming back and he's going to be on that first streaming show of the year. Not a surprise. They need to say, Kenny Omega, gonna do something. That first show on Max. That's what I think needs to happen, but no one asks me. What do I know? Anyway. Well, look, I hope you guys all had a very Merry Christmas, and I think you have a Happy New Year. Real quick, Hobbs keeps getting better and better. Each time he seems to come back, he gets a little bit more confidence, a little bit more aura, as the kids like to say. So I don't know that this is going to be the time, but I think he's going to get there. I'm pretty confident that he's gonna get there. That's what I think. Anyway, Happy New Year to all of you. Stay safe. Have a fun time. I had a great Christmas. I feel so good with the new kidney. I feel almost like my own self again, which is fantastic. And I'm looking forward to doing some fun stuff as I look back over the year. Geez, we had Bill Wadhams from Animotion on, Mark Flitman talking about the WWE Raw and Royal Rumble and Rage in the Cage video games from the 16-bit era. Thought that was a lot of fun. We talked a lot about Vince McMahon and everything that went on there. And it's going to be something to watch that going forward. What does that mean for Vince? What does it mean for the Trump administration and having his wife as part of the cabinet? Is that going to benefit him? What about the state of New York? Are they going to be able to operate independently? Or is the federal government going to have a say in whatever direction the state decides to go in its perhaps prosecution of Vince McMahon, we shall see. And Raw and SmackDown, 3 hours each, wanting to double pay-per-views, having them go over 2 days. That's a lot. It's a lot of wrestling. I don't know. The good thing is that there's a lot of quality wrestling. People are into WWE and its storylines. Wrestling fans are into wrestling on AEW. We've seen great stuff with the women locally in the United States, Canada, and also in Mexico and Japan. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to enjoy. So even if wrestling takes maybe a dip, attendance-wise and ratings-wise, for the rest of us that are addicted, we have to stick around. There's still going to be a lot to love. So in that sense, I look forward to that. But look, I appreciate each and every one of you. I really do. I wish you nothing but the best. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. And I wish you a very, very Happy New Year in 2025. So we will see you then. All right, kids. I will talk to you later. Happy New Year. See you.